Season 14 has had one of the most significant changes to the weapon pool ever. We have the Spitfire going to light ammo, the Wingman to sniper ammo, and the introduction of laser sight attachments for SMGs and pistols. I'll be going over my thoughts on which weapons are top choices to use this season, given the meta changes to some of the legends and maps, and which weapons should be left on the ground. I'm going to do this by weapon classification. So let's dive right in. First up, we have our pistols. The P2020, when compared to all other weapons, really isn't that hard hitting, especially when you don't have the hammer point hop up on. This weapon is as standard as they come, and I'll be placing this in the D tier. However, if you are able to get the hammer point on it and communicate well with your team to know when enemy shields are cracked, I would move this up to maybe a C or a C+. Next, we have the RE45, which in Season 14 will only be craftable in the replicators. It is important to note the hammer point hop up will automatically come with this weapon when crafting. With the introduction of laser sights, we have to keep in mind that now the RE45 will not have the barrel attachment. However, I do believe that this weapon is a solid choice to use off drop if you land at a replicator. It won't be a weapon that I use all throughout the game, but in certain instances, it has its purpose. I'm moving this weapon into the C tier category. Lastly, for pistols, we have the beloved Wingman, which is now taking sniper ammo. Also, the Skull Piercer hop-up returns this season, which deals 35% more damage when landing headshots. This weapon rewards you when you connect your shots, but is also now less forgiving since you will have less ammo per inventory slot, given the change from heavy to sniper. The fact that this weapon will be back on ground loot though is very appealing, which is why I'm going to count the Wingman as A tier. Moving on to SMGs. Reminder that all SMGs no longer have the ability to hold barrels, and that the base hipfire spread has increased in general on all of these weapons. Starting off with the alternator, this is one of the easiest to control SMGs and weapons in the entire game. It's accurate at close range and even some mid-range fights. This is a solid choice that is even viable in more late game situations. I'm giving the alternator a B tier rating. Next is the Prowler. Nothing has changed in recent seasons with this weapon besides the hipfire spread. It's a great choice for close range encounters, but not an overall versatile weapon. If I'm going for up close this season, I would rather use a shotgun than the Prowler, which is why I'm placing it in the C tier category. The car is back in ground loot, which I am happy to see. The TTK on this weapon is so fast and in my opinion has a relatively easy recoil pattern to control, which is important since it will no longer take a barrel attachment. As it's been in previous seasons, having the light ammo and heavy ammo options is a very nice touch when considering inventory management. For me, I'm putting the car into the B tier category. Next is the R99, one of my favorite weapons hands down in all of Apex. Very easy recoil control, high DPS, and honestly just a fun gun to use. For me, this is an easy choice to classify as A tier. Finally, we have the Volt, which is out of the care package and back on the ground floor. Now the damage has been reduced from 17 down to 15, but honestly this weapon still slaps. With Kings Canyon being the first map for rank this season, I'm anticipating closer range fights than what we were used to in Season 13 with World's Edge and Stormpoint. The Volt is one of the easiest weapons to control in the game and is going to be one of my top weapon choices due to its precision aim and ability to be used both close and mid-range. The Volt is an S tier weapon in Season 14. Moving to Marksman weapons. Starting us off will be the G7, which is now out of the care package and back to ground loot. As well, the double tap hop-up will be available. This weapon is great to pick at enemies with to help boost your Evo shield or steal some longer range kills. I've missed this weapon being on the floor and think it deserves to be in the B tier group. Next, we have the 30-30 repeater. The Skull Piercer is available to go on this weapon for the first time ever, which will offer 35% damage increase for headshots. As well, the dual shell hop-up is now permanently implemented in the weapon. This gun is an absolute beast, and I recommend to start using it if you are not. I'm going to give this weapon A tier due to the fact that the Shattercaps hop-up have been removed from floor loot. If that hop-up was still in the game, I would have given this S tier. The triple take is one of the most fun weapons to use, given that it is effective both up close and at further range due to the choke. Still, it doesn't feel as powerful as the 30-30, which is why I'm going to place it into the B tier group. Lastly, of the Marksman weapons, we have the bow, which has replaced the G7 in the care package. This thing got a serious buff going from 60 up to 70 damage per shot. As well, the Shattercap pellet damage slightly ticked up from 11 to 12. However, the draw speed has been slightly increased. This weapon can be hard to use at first, but in the right hands, it is insanely deadly, which is why I'm ranking it as A tier. Moving on to shotguns. As I mentioned on some of the SMGs, Season 14, in my opinion, is going to be best to prioritize close range weapons, especially with Vantage's ultimate. Sure, now I understand that it is a sniper kit, but your teammates get increased damage when her ult connects. You can really capitalize with these hard-hitting weapons up close with the damage increase perk. First up, the Peacekeeper. This is a fan favorite with many, and the choke allows for some added range to be applied. I'm going to place this as A tier. Next is the Mozambique. Many people might make fun of this weapon, but honestly, this thing is so powerful, especially with hammer points. The shots can go quite far when needed. It is a solid choice, but I do think there are some stronger weapon choices out there, which is why I'm giving it a B. The Mastiff is still in the care package, but it did receive a slight nerf by having the dual shell hop-up removed. Plus, the fire rate has been slightly reduced. This thing is still godly at endgame. I'm ranking it in the A category. Lastly is the EVA 8, and in Season 14, it received some interesting changes. It now takes standard stocks, and the double tap hop-up will work on it. One pellet though has been removed from the blast pattern, but the damage per pellet has increased from 6 to 7. Given that this is ground loot and the buffs it has received for this season, plus my thoughts on the season being more close range than previous ones, I'm going to rank this as S tier, and it will be one of my top weapon choices. Moving on to LMGs. First, the Devotion. This is the other weapon that will be in the replicator, but it won't come with the turbocharger hop-up. I honestly don't foresee this weapon to be crafted much at all, especially with the Volt being back on ground loot. I'm giving this a D tier rating. Next is the Spitfire, which now takes light ammo. It did also receive a slight nerf by increasing the vertical recoil of the weapon. Still, this weapon is obnoxious to say the least and relatively easy to control, which is why I'm placing it in B tier. The L-Star received some slight buffs to the projectile speed and overheat portion of the weapon. It can be used effectively up close, however, there are stronger weapons than this one. It is C tier for me. Lastly of the LMGs is the Rampage, which is now in the care package and comes with a thermite grenade. The damage has also been increased from 26 to 28. This weapon, in my opinion, has long belonged in the care package, yet it still feels easy to counter given its slow DPS when it is not ramped up. Now, if you're the right legend like Fuse due to his passive to hold more thermites, I would rank this weapon higher, but for every other legend, I'm placing this in the B tier category. Moving on to snipers. It's important to note that in Season 14, you can carry 28 rounds per inventory slot instead of 24. The Sentinel now has the Deadeye tempo hop-up built into it, yet I don't foresee much use from this weapon compared to other snipers, so I'm ranking it as C tier. The Longbow will now once again take the Skull Piercer hop-up, making it a much stronger sniper weapon choice in my opinion. This weapon is relatively easy to use and control, which is why I'm putting it into the B tier category. Next is the Charge Rifle, which I'm sure a lot of you hate unless it's in your hands. This weapon is seriously so easy to use to pick off some kills from far range or increase your Evo shield. However, it is not viable as the game progresses and the ring gets smaller and smaller. This one is going into C tier. Lastly, the Kraber, obviously a fan favorite, has become less liked in my opinion ever since the nerf it received in Season 13. I do wish that the weapon now came with more ammo given the nerf, but sadly it does not. The Kraber does have its godly moments, but not as often anymore, which is why I'm placing it as B tier. The final group of weapons is the Assault Rifle, which have increased hipfire spread in Season 14. First up is the Hemlock. The boosted loader has reduced down from a legendary hop-up to an epic one, meaning it should be easier to come across. This weapon is strong up close and at range given that you can change between burst and single fire. However, the new hipfire spread makes it not as accurate as before up close. I do think overall this weapon is solid and that it is somewhat slept on, which is why I'm giving it an A tier rating. Next is the Havoc. This is one of the most fun weapons to use, especially with the turbocharger. It is relatively easy to control. The turbocharger though is one of the hardest hop-ups to find, yet the Havoc is still somewhat viable without it. I'm ranking this as B tier. The last two weapons are the Flatline and R301, both very similar weapons given the single fire and full auto choices. One takes light ammo and one takes heavy ammo. Personally, I think the R301 is slightly easier to control than the Flatline, which is why I'm giving the R301 S tier and the Flatline A tier. Here's what my distribution of the weapons look like for Season 14. Let me know below if your thoughts align with mine or if they are completely off. I'm curious to hear what you think. If you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing. Good luck out there in Season 14.